This break is brought to you by Netflix. For a free 30-day trial, head over to netflix.com/GameBreakerTV. Now, Cryptic Studios held their first ever Neverwinter beta event this weekend. And with me is Troy Blackburn, who was lucky enough to get some time in the game. Troy, give us your first impression of the game.
Well, to be perfectly honest, my very first impression was that I was annoyed that my dwarf's beard was clipping into his armor. But after I got over that, I really found myself in a game that I was enjoying playing and didn't want to log out of. That's about the best compliment I think I can pay a game. Neverwinter did its job and made me want to keep playing.
Yeah, that is a huge compliment. So, other than your dwarf's beard clipping into his armor, what was the character creation setup like?
They've got a pretty robust character creation system, as you would probably expect from the company that has Star Trek Online and Champions Online on its resume. There are, of course, deeper character creation systems out there, but there were more than enough options available as far as hair, eyes, scars, tattoos, and such to appease most players.
Yeah, so quite a lot to choose from there. I remember with Champions Online there was quite a lot as well. I found it a little bit daunting, actually. So are there pre-made settings as well?
Yeah, you can pick from a preset character and just run with that if that's what you want to do, or you can go in and customize all the features and play with sliders that adjust facial and body features to your heart's content. After you customize your character's look, you can create your character's background information as well, including where you come from and how you came to be, who you are, as well as what god your character is going to worship. I don't think any of these choices affect gameplay, but they are there as flavor because, I mean, let's be honest, real D&D fans would be turned off if that kind of stuff wasn't in there. From there on, you can just choose a name and move on into the world.
Cool, that sounds really good. I think the background thing is really nice. It's great for sort of identifying with your character as well, to have some kind of backstory pre-created for them. So moving into the world, was there a kind of tutorial area to start with? How was that?
Yeah, there was a little starter area that you ran through a tutorial of basic gameplay, such as the action style combat and basic movement with the WAS and D keys. You start out with one ability, which is tied to your left mouse button, and that's your spammable basic attack. And from there, you pick up new abilities as you level up at a pretty decent pace. They did a really good job in the first few levels of keeping the action kind of moving along as you make your way across a big bridge that's being sieged by undead, and you fight a couple of little mini boss-like mobs. The information they give you comes in at a good pace, and new abilities come quick enough to keep you from getting dull right off the bat. But they don't overwhelm you with walls of text and just tons of information before you ever swing a weapon. There's a lot of games out there that either become dull within just a few minutes because you're not getting new abilities and ways to do things, or they give you an overwhelming amount of information that you'll never remember in the first 30 seconds you're in the game. Cryptic did a good job of finding a nice balance of action and information in the first few minutes of gameplay here, and they did a really nice job with it.
That's really good. I totally agree with you, Troy. It's a really, really important balance to strike there, because it's so annoying to just be overwhelmed by text. On the other hand, if you're just running around feeling like you're not progressing, that's also really annoying. So it's a really important thing to get right, because that's also someone's first impression of the game, really. So moving on, how did the combat feel?
It was pretty smooth. It had some good weight to it when you were striking enemies. The Trickster Rogue in particular felt really agile and seemed to really glide between enemies she was attacking. Her dodge felt responsive, and overall, she just felt like she was in a good place at this point in the beta. The Guardian Fighter was probably my favorite over the weekend, and though he did feel a lot clunkier than the Rogue did, and not as responsive to certain combat inputs. I'm sure he's not supposed to be as quick and agile as the Rogue, but there were times where it just felt downright unresponsive. It wasn't anything game-breaking, just a lot of delay between actions and some abilities not going off at times. He doesn't dodge like the Rogue. Instead, he throws up his shield to resist damage, and it was difficult at times to get him to go back to attacking after you block, or to block at the right time when he was in the middle of attacking. The ability set for the Guardian Fighter was pretty awesome, though. His basic attack is a cleave. The right mouse button attack is a shield bash that weakens the foe. And he has a dash and a really nice mix of defensive abilities, offensive steroids, and taunts that he can mix in as needed. I didn't get much time in on the devoted cleric, though, the third class that was available during the beta. I don't really go for casters very often, but it was pretty fun hurling spears of light at enemies.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Well, the combat sounds pretty good overall. There may be a few little clunky bits that they can sort out with time. So, but how about the visuals, the graphics? Did the game look nice in general?
Yeah, no, this game is never going to be mistaken for a bleeding edge visual masterpiece, but it is still pretty nice graphically. The only character model issue I really had was with the beard armor clipping that I mentioned before. But other than that, the character models are decently rendered.
That beard needs to be sorted out pretty urgently by the sounds of it. So, okay, how about the environment, the game world? How did that all seem?
The world itself is actually pretty beautiful and probably one of the better looking environments of any non-Asian free-to-play MMO I've seen recently. The city was quite stunning to see, and there was an awesome sky overhead and tall buildings in the background. The dev team did a really nice job with the shading and textures on everything, and it really does look good. Cryptic's done a really good job of bringing the world to life, too. There were lots of players, of course, because we were all starting out in the same area for the beta weekend.
Yeah.
But there were NPCs running around doing their daily routines as well, which made it feel more like a bustling city, even in the corners of the city that players really had no reason to go into. I'd say visually, there's no reason anyone would be disappointed in Neverwinter.
Well, that sounds good. So, Cryptic has included Star Trek Online's Foundry system in there as well. Did you have any chance to have a look at the Foundry stuff?
I didn't get to play around with creating content in the Foundry, but there were some campaigns that were available to be played in the beta from players who had, taken the time to test the tools out. There's a nice ranking system where you can rank 1 to 5 stars for each mission, as well as the overall campaign, which consists of a series of those little missions and like a continuing story arc. If you haven't experienced the Foundry of Star Trek Online, you're going to be in for a treat once Neverwinter goes live. Authors of player-created content can be some of the best storytellers in the game, and the ranking system makes it really easy to find the best of the best. The Foundry missions scale to my level as well, so you won't have to have the same experience over and over when leveling up alts. It's going to be really exciting to see what true D&D Dungeon Masters can come up with.
Yeah, definitely. So overall impressions, it sounds like you pretty much enjoyed your weekend in the beta of this game.
Honestly, it surprised me. I didn't necessarily expect it to be completely terrible, but from what I had seen of it, I was interested, but just didn't really think it would end up being my kind of game. Action combat can tend to be a bit of a gimmick sometimes that games use to cover up boring, repetitive gameplay. Cough, Tara, cough. But that hasn't been the case with Neverwinter so far. Combat felt good, the visuals were nice, and while the questing was pretty standard MMO stuff, the setting and the mechanics of the game really helped keep it fresh and unique. The client ran really well on my machine, and the only time I had to turn down the settings was a little bit when I was frapsing footage, which of course is not the game's fault. But there was no major crashes at any time I was playing, and everything seemed to be running fine.
That sounds really good. It's important to, that you can actually play the game at a decent settings on your computer as well. But I mean, even with the little bugs, this is just the initial beta, isn't it? As well, it's like not even finished yet.
Yeah, this was just the very first beta event, so even the little problems that I had with the game still have plenty of time to be addressed by Cryptic.
Fantastic. So it sounds like a pretty good start for Cryptic with Neverwinter then. Better than Star Trek Online, or...?
Yeah, Cryptic's reputation obviously took a bit of a hit with the launch of Star Trek Online a few years back because the game was rushed to launch, and it was pretty obvious to those of us who had been waiting a long time for that game that it was pretty much an incomplete game. They've come a long way in improving Star Trek Online since then, and later we found out that the rushed launch was more of a tough contract situation than bad game development. But it looks like Neverwinter just might prove to Cryptic's critics that they are a top-notch game developer. If they can pull off a smooth launch of a good game that like this is shaping up to be, they're going to find themselves back in the good graces of a lot of gamers. And it's going to be free to play, so what's not to love?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for that, Troy. It sounds like you had a great time in this beta. And for more information, guys, do remember to keep it locked and dialed to Gamebreaker TV for all your gaming needs.